Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tai Ojai, and I'm a fourth-year graduate student here at Rice University in the Department of Computational Applied Mathematics. It is my great honor to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Richard Tapia. Dr. Tapia is famous for his remarkable contributions to mathematical optimization, as well as diversity issues in research and education. If you take the time to read through his CV, the 66 pages therein will leave you in awe. One might try to start a summary of Dr. Tapia's journey and impact with his PhD in mathematics from UCLA in 1967, or even his bachelor's degree nearly 60 years ago. However, it is telling that Dr. Tapia also lists his marriage to his wife Jean, as well as his family at the top of his CV. Clearly, there is more to Dr. Tapia than just his myriad of mathematical achievements. I will list just a few. Dr. Tapia was the first Hispanic elected to the National Academy of Engineering in 1992, and in 2005, Rice University named Dr. Tapia a university professor, the institution's highest academic title. To follow up that accomplishment, in 2011, President Barack Obama awarded him with the National Medal of Science, the highest honor in the country for researchers. Two mathematical and engineering conferences bear his name. In addition, Dr. Tapia has served as an editor for the Siam Journal on Optimization and the Siam Journal on Numerical Analysis. Dr. Ilya Hicks, a professor here at Rice and a former student in Dr. Tapia's class, cites Dr. Tapia as one of the main reasons he became a professor himself, and I'm sure many other Rice alumni would say the same. I know you will be fascinated by Dr. Tapia's story and views. While discussing his status as an example in both diverse and homogeneous communities, Dr. Tapia stated, "One of the things we do as role models is we look to youth, and they look at us. But I want to be a role model on the other side. The majority community can look at people like us and say, quality comes in all flavors." Please help me give a well-deserved welcome to Dr. Richard Tapia.
Thank you. Thank you, Tayo. It's a pleasure to be here. You're a beautiful audience. And there's certain people in the audience I certainly would like to welcome even stronger. First Lady of Rice University, the gracious and lovely Ping Sun. Okay? Okay. Also, the gracious and lovely Jean Tapia, my wife, of 60 years. Okay? And my son Richard, who's over there, but I won't say gracious and lovely, okay? Okay. So this is my story. You hear many times, you know, if you're in the church, this is my story, this is my song. I'm sharing with you my story, the complete story, ups and downs. So let's go. Here's a career outline. High school, very weak high school, very poor. Community college, very strong in math. UCLA, good, hard, undergraduate, good school, and I had to work very hard. University of Wisconsin, a postdoc, outstanding, one of the best things I ever did. Rice University, excellent, outstanding, one of the best things I ever did. Stanford University in 1976, visiting professor. It was good and bad, and I won't tell you what was good and what was bad, but you may ask me later on, okay? So my struggle for identity. There's an identity crisis for underrepresented minorities growing up in the United States, and especially if you're a minority and you're good in math or STEM areas. We're not supposed to be. We're not expected to be. So I had to figure my whole life, growing up in Los Angeles, what's my identity? What's my identity? Well, my struggle for identity. In the United States, I was called Mexican. Go back where you came from. But I'm from here. I'm not Mexican. My mother and father are Mexican. We went to Mexico, and my mother said, "You will see." And they called me gringo. Go back where you came from, okay? I wasn't Mexican. I wasn't American. What was I? In between, okay? Where do I belong? In Los Angeles is a negative image of the term Mexican American. Your kind is not quality, and you do not belong in quality activity. That's what I had to grow up with, okay? My mother, proudest woman I've ever known. Be proud of who you are. But Mom, they won't let me be proud. You say be proud, but they won't let me be proud. So, who am I? All my life I've asked that question. Maybe in the last few years I think I've answered it, okay? Words that I identify with and make me happy. Chicano. I grew up in the 60s. Chicano to me was not a militant move. It was just Mexican American. Okay, so that means born in the United States with heritage from Mexico. That's proudly Chicano. Okay, that's who I am. Tejano. I wasn't born here, so I can't be a Tejano. Okay, that's in Spanish just means Texan, but it really identifies with the Hispanic part of Texas. Selena, popularized Tejano. Beautiful, beautiful. So I love that word. I know that deep in my heart, just like I'm not from Mexico, I'm also not from Texas. How long have Gene and I been here? 47 years. That's a long time. Maybe in another 47, I'll be a Tejano. Okay? Mathematician. Is that an identity that I can take? Yes. Proud and happy. Okay. Now, my daughter Becky says to me, Dad, do you love mathematics? I do. How can anybody love mathematics? Okay. How can you possibly love it? I do, and it gives me an identity, and I'm proud of it, and it's been good to me. It's been very good, okay? So those are my identities. That's what Tejano, Mexicano, mathematician looks like, okay? So this was the cover of SACNAS News. So Neil Lane was science advisor to President Bill Clinton. So he took it to Clinton. Clinton said he liked it, and he wrote me a note. I like your cover. Okay. That's what in my mind I look like, okay? Now I'm going to say something here. See, this is going to be a long line. As Mexican American, in your DNA, there's a component for the love of Chevrolets, okay? It just happens. So all my life has been Chevrolets, okay? Now, Jean's not Mexican American, but she also loves Chevrolets, okay? She's New Yorican. Okay, my parents from Mexico. My mother came at the age of 11. By herself? No, she had a 10-year-old sister she had to take care of. No adults, no parents. Her father was this wanderer who wandered around, and he said, I've seen a place that's great. It's called Los Angeles. And you're smart, Magda. I'm sending you to Los Angeles. And she came. But the uncle she was supposed to stay with didn't believe women should be educated. So at the age of 11, she went out and found a job. She moved in with a Jewish family that manufactured clothes, and she cooked and cleaned and nannied for the family. So she, from the age of 11 or 12 to 19, was living in a Jewish family, which reinforced her values of education. My father came at the age of 7 with his mother, but she soon died. So a very similar story, except he was sort of adopted, if you wish, by a Japanese family in Los Angeles. So my father was really supported, and he could speak a broken form of Japanese, and they all called him, his name was Amado, they called him Mado-san. And I remember when we were young, he still had a great relationship with the Japanese family that sort of adopted him. My mother was Magda, okay? Teachings. My father worked so hard that often he was gone when we got up and he wasn't home till we came. So I say we were influenced by my mother. Pride. I've never met a person prouder than my mother. The pride of Mexico. Belief that you can. Si se puede is attributed to Cesar Chavez. But Magda said that way before Cesar Chavez. And she didn't say si se puede, she showed us, yes you can. One step at a time along the rainbow path will lead you to a pot of gold. And I said, Mom, that's ridiculous. They're ridiculous. But I learned. She was right. See, one thing it took me a long time to learn was that mothers are always right, okay? Outstanding work habits by my parents. I mean, they really worked hard. But there's an issue we're going to come back to, global excellence. My mother didn't say practice global excellence. She showed us global excellence. We weren't supposed to be good just for the family or the neighborhood or Los Angeles. Good was across a global standard, across everything. This is going to come back in my story. She showed us global excellence. She didn't say, oh, that's good, honey, for the family. It's good or it's not, across the board. Stage one of my life, our humble beginnings, circa 1957. The early love, I have a twin brother, Bobby. Our love was cars. We started working on cars when we were 10 years old. By the time we were 14, we were racing them. By the time we were 16, we had national records. Now, I often think about why we were into cars so much. And I know we were socially awkward because we just didn't mix socially. We weren't precocious on it. So we turned to cars. And at that age, we realized that cars were perhaps more dependable than women. So we say, okay, we'll go to cars, okay? And, you know, you could just have a relationship that you could just feel was dependent. So maybe that's why we turned to cars and stayed away, okay? But we had an early love for cars, a very early love for cars. Now, that's 1957. Now, for those of you that will recognize it, that beautiful car is a 57 Chevy, okay? Now, that beautiful young man is me, okay? In 1957. So I was 18 years old, okay? And not bad. So Bobby and I decided, with our passion for cars, we were going to build a dragster. So we took over my mother's and father's garage and driveway, and we built a dragster. And the dragster, we took the little Chevy engine out of the 57 and put it in a dragster. And we built that chassis. It's a slingshot chassis, K88. Anyway, we built it. And that's some of our friends. If you look in the background, you'll see a 57 Ford, a 53 Cadillac. So this is 57, 58. We built a dragster with a Chevy engine. A passion that we had. There was everything. It just consumed all our time. We called the car Almost Grown because it was a little Chevy after a song, Almost Grown, by Chuck Berry. I don't know if you've heard it. It goes, woo, I'm almost grown. So this was Almost Grown. It was wonderful. Now, I worked for IBM. Bobby worked for IBM while we were students. So Bobby, as a driver, became known as the Computerized driver. Okay? And that was his nickname, the Computerized driver. In a very famous race, well known, in 1959, in a highly publicized match race, Bobby in the little Chevy Almost Grown beats Art Arfons in the Green Monster. Art Arfons is legendary, one of the greatest products of this country. Big match race. Bobby became known as the Giant Killer, okay? Beat Art Arfons and the Green Monster. It was a huge race. There it is. There's Bobby on this side. There's the Green Monster with an aircraft engine on the back, okay? So Bobby started to move up. Top Fuel. This is Long Beach. Long Beach is the most famous drag strip in the country, Long Beach, California. Bobby moved up to Top Fuel. He set the strip record. There's Bobby at Bakersfield in a car owned by Larry Stellings called Tanqueray. Tanqueray. Why? Because Gene and Bobby and all of us used to love to drink gin and tonic. Okay? And our favorite brand of gin was Tanqueray. So we named the car Tanqueray. Okay? And here is one of the most famous pictures in all of drag race. An artist named David Peters took a shot of Tanqueray with the flames coming out of the exhaust pipes. And he called it Tanqueray Flambe. And if you look on the web, you'll see it. But you won't be able to download it because he has it copyrighted. And so this is one of the most famous pictures in all of drag racing. That's Bobby in Tanqueray, called Tanqueray Flambe. In February of 1968, In Tanqueray, Bobby set the world record, okay, in '68. So this is an example. World record. It wasn't the record for our family, our neighborhood, all the Mexicans in Los Angeles. It was the world record. Global excellence, okay? So now at this time, I've given this talk before, by the way, so I asked for this. You're going to vote. Anybody who's taken a class from me knows that I always ask you to vote. So you're going to vote. You're going to vote on whether, see, in 1968, I got a PhD in mathematics from UCLA. Bobby got a world record. I got a PhD in math, okay? So I'm going to ask you to vote. I'm going to say, would you rather have a world record dragster or a PhD in math? And I always ask, I've given this talk 3 times in the last month. I ask you to vote. So here's what you're going to do, okay? You're going to vote. So first we're going to vote. Would you rather have a PhD in mathematics? Hands. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, would you rather have a world record? That's good, okay? See, the world record would live longer. I mean, the world record is in the history books. The history books aren't going to say, Richard Tapia, PhD in mathematics, okay? But to have Bobby Tapia, world record. Now, the vote went kind of the way it does. Usually it's around 50-50. You went more for the PhD, but this is Rice. I would expect. This is Rice. I expect you to do that, okay? Now, I spoke last week at Lone Star Community College, and the vote was about split. Okay, so it's usually split, but anyway, that's fine. So Bobby's world record, another example of my mother's global teaching. Stage 2, happiness and early success. The passion for cars. Bobby and I started working on cars at the age of 10. Now, we move forward. Really a cute couple, okay? That's Jean, and that's me when we got married. She was 17. I was 19, about to turn 20. Now, we are a cute couple. There's no doubt about it, okay? Circe, our daughter, was born in 1960. Richard, her son, who's sitting right there, was born in 1968. That's the year I got a PhD. So my celebration, Jean and our celebration that I got a PhD, was having a son, okay? Our life was simple. I just wanted to be a mathematician. Jean just wanted to be a dancer. That's all. And we were married. That didn't change anything. We had children. That didn't change anything. A simple life. I want to be a mathematician. Jean, I want to be a dancer. And she did. She kept on dancing, and I kept on going to school as we were married. Jean danced in Los Angeles with 2 companies. When we moved to Houston, when I came to Rice, she started a dance school. And her dance school was called Jean Tapia School of Dance. She had 450 students. She taught 21 classes a week. She worked hard. She was an outstanding teacher. And in fact, her teaching has influenced many people. So one of her all-time favorite students was a young woman named Shirley Scheck. What did her influence do? It led Shirley Scheck to her position today as Magister of Brown College. Shirley, be recognized wherever you are. Higher, stand up. And in fact, Shirley was Pinocchio in one of Jean's plays, and our son Richard was Jiminy Cricket. So that was a long time ago. Okay. Circe started dancing before she could walk. She had to. So when I would take care of Circe, I'd take her to UCLA, and she would read math books. No, not completely, but and Jean would take her, and she would be on the wings when Jean was dancing. Everybody loved Circe. She danced. She grew up dancing. She graduated from HSPPA, went to UCLA, and I'm told she's the only freshman to ever dance the lead role in UCLA's dance production. Okay? But she said dance is not in the universities. So she went to New York, and she danced there with a company. Then one day she told me, Dad, I'm a hotshot in Houston. I'm a big fish in a little pond. In New York, there are 500 people better than I am, okay? So I'm coming back to Houston, and I'm going to go to Rice. And she did. Richard, percussion. I mean, his mother is Nuyorican, Puerto Rican background. Of course he's going to be into music, okay? In Gene's family, distant, but in Gene's family is Tito Puente, okay? So Richard graduated also from HSPVA, and then he went to North Texas State. And he was one of the few freshmen to be in a lab band.
Then Becky came into our lives. Becky sang quite beautifully and with various mariachis. She started singing to honor the memory of Selena, and she would sing in Spanish. And even the Colombians, who think that their Spanish is the best, would say that Becky's Spanish was perfect. However, Becky did not speak Spanish. She could just sing in Spanish. Sometimes she'd ask, "Dad, what did that song say?" And I'd tell her. And then she would answer, "Oh, how sad. Isn't that so sad?" But then she learned Spanish by speaking with her Spanish-speaking friends and their parents. Indeed, she learned, is completely fluent, and now understands the beautiful words that she sings.
Okay, academic success. So let's start off. In 1970, we came to Rice. In 72, I was promoted to associate professor with tenure. In 2 years. I don't know if that could happen anymore, but I did. But why? It was so important for me to be promoted because in those times, there was an issue of hired to be fired. So minorities were being hired to be fired. University of California, Berkeley, one of my favorite places, was investigated by the government for hiring minorities and then firing them. For example, one opening, let's hire 6, fire 5. We get credit for hiring, and nobody knows that we fired, okay? So I had to get tenure. I knew that I had to get tenure. When Rick Barrera came to me as a fresh hire here at Rice, he said to me, "Richard, can I help you?" And I said, "Rick, you can. Get tenure and then come back." And he did. Stage 3, the delicate balance of academic success and outreach, okay? Now, 1972, I got tenure. It's a time to embrace giving back in terms of addressing underrepresentation. But it's a huge, delicate balance between being professional mathematician and being outreach individual. That's been the hardest thing in my entire life, of balancing how much do I do to help others and how much do I do to help my own career. Incredibly delicate balance. The hardest thing in my life. No, second or third hardest, okay? But anyway, I had to balance those things, okay? I saw students who needed help at Rice. I said, I've been there. I understand. I can help. I can help you. I wasn't programmed to be a teacher. I wasn't programmed to be outreach person. I saw that I could help all kinds of people, Ilya included, okay? I must help, but I must have tenure, and I must balance. So in 1972, I started a group at Rice called RAMAS, Rice Association of Mexican American Students. In 1972, Latino was Mexican American. It wasn't all these complicated people from complicated areas. It was simply Chicano, okay? Now that's the group. So what do you say about RAMAS? Eventually, it broadened out to ASER, which was Hispanic Association for Cultural Enrichment at Rice. It was no longer Chicano, but these were all. So you say, what do you say? They say, first thing is, there's no women. The first time we met, when I started the RAMAS, there were 15. We had one woman, Linda Flores, okay? So we did have one, because Rice didn't have women. The CAM department, which used to be called Mathematical Sciences, in the early 70s, produced the first woman Latina domestic PhD in the United States. In these times, the first Mexican-American, Latina, if you wish, PhD woman in the United States. Do you know who that was? Ruth Gonzalez, okay? Went to ExxonMobil. The first, okay? Now the other thing I say about it, isn't our hair beautiful? I mean, look at that beautiful hair. We're all males, okay? So when I got promoted in '72, the chair of our department, he didn't put me up. I put myself up. In those days, you could do that. And he said to me, Richard, you got great evaluations for teaching, which helped you in your promotion. And the reason you got good teaching evaluations is because you had long hair, okay? And I said, Dr. Thrall, I don't think so, okay? I think there was more than long hair, okay? Stage 3. Life was going strong. Jean was dancing. She had the studio. I got tenure at Rice. See, my mother and father would have been happy if I had graduated from high school and no more. My mother didn't get to middle school. So they were just saying, go forward, and they would celebrate high school, let alone a PhD, let alone a faculty position at a great place like Rice. They were ecstatic. Personal tragedies. 1977, the dancer Jean is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. 1979, she's diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. She can no longer walk. She can't accompany along the rainbow path. She's in a wheelchair. By the way, that picture is Bob Richardson, Nobel laureate in physics, okay, friend of ours. So Jean goes to a wheelchair. She has to give up the studio. She can no longer dance. Okay, 1982. Cersei was a student here at Rice, and in 1982 she was a sophomore. And in 1982, March 15th, she was killed in an automobile accident on the corner of University and Greenbrier. Cersei was killed. So Jean says to me, I'm out. 3 strikes. My dance is gone. Our daughter is gone. I'm out. And I said, no, Jean, we have to go on. We can't give up. 3 strikes, I'm out. Stage 4, coping with mechanisms, or coping mechanisms. But see, with Cersei, even though I have students here who I'm very proud of, Cersei continues to be my favorite Rice student. She didn't graduate. So late at night, when I'm in my office, I can sense the presence of Cersei. And maybe you can too. She hasn't graduated. She's still waiting to graduate from Rice University. Coping mechanisms. A need to return to dance, a need to return to cars. The stability and the strength of our background. Jean's video coming back. So I convinced Jean that she could give exercise for people in wheelchairs and build a program. You don't have to give up. It's not over for you. So I'm going to show you Jean's video. She did a video called Coming Back, and it got her on national TV. So let's watch this.
I'm ready. Are you ready? Then let's go for it. My name is Jean Tapia. I have multiple sclerosis and myasthenia gravis. Exercise has really improved the quality of my life, and I know it can do the same for you.
Jean appears on national TV instructing the Los Angeles Multiple Sclerosis Society.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now we have in our audience some members of the Southern California chapter of the National MS Society, and I understand they are most anxious to share in this exercise program with you. What are you going to show them?
Well, what Texans MSers can do, right? No.
Okay, that's a good start.
I'm ready if they're ready.
Okay, go on over. Rob is there with them, so go on over.
Sandy, thank you very much. We're set. I might say, too, these are just great upper body exercises for anyone. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Jean, over to you.
All right, gang, let's do it.
I'm going to exercise with you, too.
All right, the first thing, let's just take a deep breath and lift up those arms. Inhale, exhale, lower those heads and the shoulders down. Do it again. Feels good. Deep breath through the nose. Everybody do it. Exhale.
So when we went out, these multiple sclerosis people from Los Angeles in wheelchairs didn't want to see some bouncy Texan come in and start telling them what to do. So in rehearsal, they gave her a terrible time. They made Jean cry. I told her, they're testing you, Jean. Hang on, hang on. They're testing you, okay? And indeed they were, and Jean hung on. So when the show came live on TV, they were right in line, and supported, and it was a great thing. And they supported Jean, they bought into Jean. It was a great event. Our show cars, okay? We built a car, heavy metal, 3 times national show car champion, 3 times national champion. That's the car. 1970 Chevelle Malibu, that's called heavy metal. Now, Joseph Cifuentes, Chicano student at Rice in math and art, did the graphics. See the side graphics? And another Chicano student at Rice did the monster. The monster is a takeoff from Iron Maiden's Eddie. So I saw Iron Maiden's Eddie, and I said, let's make some little modifications. But we did. The car was built by Randy Borcherdin. Randy is wonderful, and this car made him quite well known. And at times, between the graphics and the monsters, he said, he's a nice, wonderful white male. Richard, we're being too ethnic. You're going too far. When we got to California and won all the shows, he said, well, maybe you weren't too far. Maybe you weren't. The judges in California said, that's the finest car we've seen in this class. We're in Fresno, California. I'm pushing Jean. There's a car. Global excellence. I didn't tell people I'm a mathematician and they'd say, that's great for a mathematician, or that's great for a professor. If I wanted to get along with the other people, I couldn't tell them I was a professor, because then they wouldn't talk to me. See? So I tried to pass. I'm not a professor. Okay? And we did. Global excellence. Stage 4, a renewed commitment to understanding and improved representation in STEM. We're dealing with the tragedies, the adversity we dealt with. Now we're coming back. Why worry about underrepresentation? Our representation in the population is exploding. That's underrepresented minorities. Our representation in STEM disciplines is not improving. I don't care what school you take, any tier 1 school you want. Ilya Hicks, our friend, is the only African American in a tenured track position in a math department at a tier 1 school in the state of Texas. 1. How many at U of H? Well, 0. Texas A&M, 0. UT, 0. Ilya is unique, the only one in the state of Texas. Indeed, we've got a long ways to go. It's an unhealthy situation when the population is growing and yet our representation is not. The Browning of America. The Pew Hispanic Center says, the Mexican-American boom. First time in history, births overtake immigration. Look at that red box. It says that for every Hispanic that dies, 8 will replace that individual. The green box says that for every non-Hispanic that dies, 1.5 will replace. So we're just huge. So what Trump's wall will do, it will keep Mexicans in, not out, okay? We're here to stay. So how are we doing? So we're going to go through this slide fast. Blue is brown. Black is yellow. Okay. White is gray. What does it say? I'll summarize it. It says nobody can drop out of high school like Hispanics. We're the best in the world at dropping out of high school. Okay. What do blacks do best? High school and maybe a bit of college. Okay. Not finishing college, just going. What's the red line at the bottom? That's Asians. College and more. Look at that. That's what they do. Now, you know that. I'm not telling you things that you don't know. For good reason, the nation uses representation in areas of mathematics, computer science, and electrical engineering as indicators of the health stem of the nation. So if we look at the top 100 departments in the country, and let's say we look at math, and we're looking at the faculty. Less than 2% are black, less than 2% are Hispanic, 17% are Asian. That's not a criticism. That's a fact. It's an acknowledgement. So let's go down to electrical engineering. Less than 2% black, less than 2% brown, 28% Asian. Okay? And yet the Asian population is 4%. Black and brown put together is 30%. So where do we get our degrees, our PhDs? Hispanics, civil engineering and sociology. African Americans, sociology and political science. Females, sociology and psychology. White males, everything but sociology, okay? Asians, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science. Our concern with STEM underrepresentation today does not come from moral or ethical issues as it did in the 60s. Indeed, today it's a simple matter of the nation's survival. As such, it's an issue of numbers, not of which group suffered the most. There's enough suffering for everybody. Underrepresentation endangers the health of the nation, not the health of the discipline. Mathematics will go on without women and minorities. It'll be fine, as will other areas. But the nation won't. The nation won't, with the largest growing segment of the population not being represented in the backbone issues of the country. An outreach success, the Tapia Center. So a lot of the work that I did, it started in the 90s, would put through the Tapia Center. So I did through our department, but we undergraduate programs called Empowering Leadership and AGEP, okay, graduate. So the Tapia Center has provided training and guidance to more than 6,000 students, 2,500 K-12 teachers, and educated almost 250,000 students and professionals about the importance of diversity and representation. Now look at those pictures. They're beautiful. You're beautiful. They're all beautiful, okay? So we've done a lot through the Tapia Center. Now, in the years 1999, 2012, I had support from the Sloan Foundation and the National Science Foundation. We did a lot of things. So I either directed or mentored 89 minority PhDs in STEM. You look at the count, 31 African American, 31 Mexican American, and the others. We led the nation. We got huge visibility. Rice was on top. We still have that recognition. A lot of my recognition comes from those times. So we did very well. So the Tapia Center is still doing very well. And we have a program in a minute. I'm going to let one of our people talk about it. But right now, we're going to finish. Okay, so we did very well. What can we do? Okay, let's say this fast. Okay, historically, mathematics departments, among all academic departments, have been the largest obstacle. It doesn't matter where I go. If I go to UT El Paso or Michigan, the president always says to me, "Why is our math problem so problematic?" Always math departments, okay? Maybe computer science, maybe not so much. But you fail our students, but they're not prepared. But look, you don't make the distinction between being underprepared and no talent. So you assume that these students who are underprepared have no talent. And that's what's happening across the country. Okay, academic successes. In 1992, I was the first Latino elected to the National Academy of Engineering. Yay, okay. In 2005, 2007, became university professor at Rice. At that time, there was only 1 in 6. In 2011, I won the highest award given in the United States, the National Medal of Science. So the other part of I should tell you that my part of outreach was going well. But I had to maintain that other part of me as a scientist. I want that delicate balance. So this is proof. The National Medal of Science was proof that I hadn't given up on the science part. I hadn't given up. So this was a very interesting experience, okay? My mother's teaching. By this time, she was no longer with us. But that night, I closed my eyes, and I said, "Thank you, Mother. You would have been proud, and you showed us not to give up and to keep going." Okay? So I had to ask a lot. Do I belong? Look at the names on there. Any of you are a scientist. I mean, John Milner, Paul Cohen, John Tukey. How can I belong in that group? And Gene and I would argue. Jean would say, can you ever win the National Medal of Science? And I said, no. And she'd say, well, I think you can. Jean, what do you know? What do you know? I mean, do you know mathematicians? Do you know any of these names? No. But I think you can. Okay? So, I said no. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the trip to the White House. Okay? So, it is magic in the White House. If you grow up in this country and they say, look, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, and they play Hail to the Chief, it has to do something to you. Now, our daughter Becky, who was there, tries very hard not to be impressed with anything. But she couldn't fight it. She had to be impressed with the ceremony and the White House. Our son Richard spent his time talking to the Marine Corps band, okay, about music. He was impressed with the whole ceremony. Now, a woman came out before the ceremony and said, President Obama does not like you to yell. No yelling. And then the Marine Sergeant came out and said, National Medal of Science, Richard Tapia. And Jean, sitting right there, screamed and hollered. And she was in a wheelchair, and she almost jumped out of the wheelchair. And President Obama looked at me as if to ask, is that your wife? And I looked back as if to say, yes, okay? And it went on, and I want to say something. When we got back that night, Jean said, you knew I was going to yell. And I said, Jean, I knew you were going to yell. Okay? My side won. What am I supposed to do? Sit still? My side won. I understand. That was fine, Jean. Okay? Now, I want to tell you about 3 women that I have high respect for. Let's take Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Sonia Sotomayor, and Jean Tapia. What do they have in common? They're bold, they're strong, they're outspoken, and they're all New Yorkers. All 3 are Puerto Ricans born in New York, okay? And it shows. It shows. I'm not surprised to see AOC, and I became very good friends with Sotomayor, and I've known Jean for a long time, okay? Those 3 women, okay? Now, President Obama came out and he said, see, I still didn't believe I belonged. And he said to me, to the group, he said, all 7 of you, there were 7, have done great research. But Richard Tapia has given in directions which are so critical to the health of the nation. He's worked with underrepresentation issues on women and minorities. I wish the other 6 of you would emulate what he has done. Okay? Let's give President Obama a hand on that. So I said, well, maybe I do belong. And Jean said, I told you so. But there's more. So NSF has a very prestigious award called the Vannevar Bush Award. And I wanted to win that, even though it's not as well known. So I won that. Obstacles that I had to deal with along the way. Am I good enough? Always asking, am I good enough? Self-doubt. Do I belong? Here I am on the National Science Board, President Clinton appointee, winning, and then here I am in Obama's court with the National Medal of Science. Do I belong? Imposter syndrome. They made a mistake. They picked somebody, and they made a mistake. Lower expectations. When I was an undergraduate at UCLA, I had a professor named Daniel Popper, and I didn't do well in his class. I did okay. I got a B. And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to graduate school. And he said, well, I don't think you should. I said, no, I'm going to go. Well, maybe a master's degree, but certainly not a PhD, okay? And I said, well, I'm going. Now, when I got a PhD, I didn't have the desire to go back and talk to him, but it certainly served to motivate me, okay? Shirley Malcolm, one of my dear friends, Director of Education for the AAAS, okay? I asked, Shirley, what motivated you to get a PhD? And she said, George Wallace telling me I couldn't do it. So Popper played a role. Lack of guidance in high school. That's how I ended up going to community college. Nobody told me, you're good. You should go to college. Maybe my mother, but maybe not. At community college, I had 2 math professors. Said, you're really good. Go to UCLA. Where is it? It's over that way. I'll go. I'll find out. When I got there, they said, not only could you have come out of high school, you could have gotten fellowships and support. Nobody told me. But I'm here. At UCLA, in the whole math department, there was one underrepresented minority faculty, David Sanchez. He didn't hold my hand, and he didn't say every day, but when I got a PhD, he said, what are you going to do? I don't know. Well, he and the chair of the department, Lowell J. Page, said, Richard, we have friends at Wisconsin. We're going to send you to Wisconsin. Fine. Jane Pack, get the kids, get the stuff. We're going to Wisconsin. Okay? And we went to Wisconsin. It may have been the best thing I've ever done besides my marriage. Okay. Advice. Believe in yourself. Si se puede. I can do it. Maintain passion. You have to love what you're doing. If you're not, don't love it, then why are you doing it? Learn survival skills. I will survive. I learned them from my mother. Practice work habits. I learned them from my mother and father. Employ global standards. I learned them from my mother and father. Make the world a better place. Dream big, but deal with adversity as needed. Success and failure. If things don't go the way your dream wants them to go, continue to go. There's still plenty to do. And that's what Gene and I have had to do. Now, the guardian themes in my life. I'm not the best, but I'm good enough. Okay? What does that mean? It means I have enough talent that if I work very, very hard, I will succeed in high places. That's what AOC and Beto O'Rourke say. We went against incredible odds, but we worked harder than anybody else, and we succeeded. So I'm not the best. I was never the best student at UCLA in any class, but I was good enough to succeed if I worked hard. If you sit on the porch with the big dogs and occasionally bark like a big dog, the world will view you as a big dog, okay? That's what happened to me at Wisconsin. I was writing papers with the best in the world. Now, big dogs doesn't mean you have to be white. Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez. Just run with that pack, and it'll carry you along. Okay, a message to students. Your credentials precede you. They promote credibility and open doors. When I get invitations to talk, I have spoken recently at MIT, at Caltech, and places. Tapia can't be a total turkey. If I was a total turkey, I wouldn't win those awards. So be a professional who happens to be a minority, not a professional minority. I've always viewed that we serve as role models in 2 capacities. To minority youth, to people who follow me, but also to my colleagues, majority colleagues at the National Science Foundation. I wanted people to say, Richard Tapia has been a valuable member of this committee. So people like Richard will be valuable members, i.e., excellence comes in all genders and all flavors. That's what I wanted. Okay? Now, that's just thank you. Okay? And at this time, I want to thank Jean. This is the first time that Jean has come out of the house since her 3-week bout in the hospital in December. So she came here. So I want to thank Jean for 60 years of support and marriage. Okay?